Two-part series on human trafficking in the Lowcountry continues.
Our Colby Satterfield introduced us to Beth, a woman who was forced into sex trafficking.
Now tonight, Beth's story continues, and we look into what's being done to bring sex trafficking to an end.
It happens across the country, our state, and in our community. Sex trafficking. It's a crime we don't know much about until it lands on our doorstep, or in this case, a motel door. I sat down with a woman whose story brings us here to this West Ashley motel. Beth was a victim of sex trafficking. It's not safe for her to show her face or even give her real name, but her story is all too common.
You know, we're kind of desensitized by television and music, that when we see it, we're no longer shocked by that. And so sometimes I think we're guilty of doing nothing.
Chances are you've seen sex trafficking happen right before your eyes. It's here, on our streets, in our motels, and in our neighborhoods. Beth knows because she lived it.
It's a completely different world. Like, it's not the same. It took a long time to adjust back to real life.
And was brought by her trafficker to South Carolina for one reason.
It's really popular there. Charleston and Mount Pleasant. It's huge. It's everywhere.
And adults aren't the only victims.
A lot of our kids were sexually abused when they were 6 or 7 years old, so their entire life has been chaotic. So they are in survival mode.
Sharon Reichard works with victims of sex trafficking. She says the number of people who are being trafficked and the number of children who are vulnerable brings a harsh realization.
It's devastating, and the trauma that these kids have had to go through is horrific.
She'll be opening a home for these young victims, a place for them to feel at peace, go to school, and readjust to the world they were taken from. Because once victims are rescued, it doesn't mean their nightmare is over.
It was scary. Anybody that I felt was a pimp after I got out of it, I kind of went into like a panic attack, and I felt like it was going to happen again.
Making the state's first home for victims a defining moment for South Carolina.
If you don't have a placement, some place that this child can go to receive the services and the help that she needs, you really don't have a strong state.
Which brings the question of how is this happening and what's being done to stop it? For those questions, I came to Columbia to sit down with our state attorney general.
In 2011, when I took office, there was so much we didn't know about the problem of human trafficking in South Carolina. At that time, we were one of the worst states in the country on our enforcement of human trafficking in South Carolina, and now we're one of the best states in the country.
Looking at the data, our state has a C rating from Shared Hope International, a national nonprofit that works in all states to end sex trafficking. And that score has only gone down from the year before. But in sitting down with the Attorney General, he's right about how much our state has moved forward. When he was elected, our state was amongst the worst in the country. But still, why the step backwards?
Under a federal statute, it's mandated that the definition of child abuse and neglect and sexual assault has to include sex trafficking as well. And our state definition is behind, and we don't have that yet.
Brooke Burris is on the task force, and she says this is the biggest reason why our state was set back when it comes to the grade. The South Carolina Attorney General's office is working to fight sex trafficking in the state. I checked out their annual report to see what the plan is moving forward to make sure this comes to an end. What I learned may shock you.
As much as I love Charleston and I would love to live there, it's scary for me to live there.
Charleston County is the #2 place in the state for human trafficking. Beth can attest to that because she was brought here for that very reason.
I mean, a lot of tourists come through, you know, they want a good time while they're there.
So how will we see the change? The Attorney General's office wants to train those most likely to come in contact with victims, medical professionals, truck drivers, and law enforcement. They also want to train lawyers who might later represent the victims.
So we'll train lawyers to say this is what trafficking might look like in our state.
The plan calls for a deeper look at the laws we have when it comes to trafficking and to open the first shelter for victims, which could happen any day now, which could change their lives and speed up healing. But what's a crucial part of our state's plan is making you aware that this is happening.
It's every day. It's every minute of every day. It doesn't stop. They don't sleep.
Beth was taken to countless cities along the East Coast. Charleston would be the last city she would be taken as a victim
of sex trafficking.
That's how this nightmare ends, at this same spot on a cold winter night 5 years ago, her arrest being her salvation.
They apparently had been following us for a long time. Homeland Security was. And they finally raided us while we were in Charleston. At first I was upset, but after a day or two in jail, I was relieved. I was safe.
Jail became her new life, a safe haven from what she was rescued from.
I literally cried and begged them not to let me go because I didn't know if the girls were downstairs waiting for me to come out. I didn't want to go back into that life.
Years later, she has her GED, starting to go back to school, and she's building a better life. Things are getting better for her and for our state, but she is still picking up the pieces.
It's calm. It's very quiet. I don't go out. I don't party. I work, I take care of my son, and I go home.
How has he changed your life?
He gave me life. I didn't have life. I didn't want to live anymore. And I got pregnant with him, and he really saved my life.
Yet she can't show her face because years later, she still lives in fear. Fear for a world and memories of an abductor that will never truly leave her.
To me, I worry that he'll get out and look for me. I don't want him to find me at all. I don't want him to know anything about me.
She was forced to do more and see more in that year that you and I will never know or fully understand. But she wants to leave you with this.
My biggest thing is I want girls to know it's real, because I never believed pimps really exist, but they do, and it's not good.
The story doesn't end here. There's something you can be doing to look for this happening in your community. Up right now on live5news.com, I have information on what you can be looking for and how you can get involved in stopping sex trafficking.